What if the worst day of your life was actually the beginning of something miraculous? What would you do if, in your darkest moment, you came face to face with the very meaning of life and death? Could forgiveness truly heal even the deepest wounds? In today's story, we follow the incredible journey of Christina, a woman whose life changed forever after a near-death experience. What she saw and the message she received will challenge everything you think you know about love, forgiveness, and redemption. Stay tuned to discover the powerful lessons Christina brought back from the other side, and why her message could be the key to unlocking hope in your life today. Before we dive into this incredible journey, make sure to hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell so you never miss out on stories that inspire and transform. If this story moves you, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to leave a comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts on Christina's powerful experience. And if you know someone who could benefit from this message, share this video with them. Let's spread hope and healing together. The sky over Chicago was heavy with clouds, casting a dull gray light over the city streets. For most, it was just another day in the noisy, fast-paced world. But for Christina, a 16-year-old girl who had been blind since birth, her world was built on sounds, smells, and touch. Despite her blindness, Christina saw things in a way that others couldn't. She felt life, heard its rhythm, and through it all, her faith in God gave her strength. Christina lived with her father, James, in a small apartment on the city's north side. The building had its imperfections, cracked walls, uneven floors, but to her, it was home. She had memorized every step from her bedroom to the kitchen and could navigate her surroundings with ease. But while the space was familiar, it felt empty, as if a part of their home had disappeared when her mother passed away 2 years ago. Her mother's death had broken James in ways Christina could feel but not fully understand. Once a loving and joyful man, James had become a shell of the person he used to be. Grief had taken over his life, leaving him distant and cold. His laughter had vanished, and he had stopped going to church, which had once been a place of peace for both of them. "Breakfast is ready, Dad," Christina called from the kitchen, her voice gentle as she set the table. Though she couldn't see, her movements were smooth and practiced, knowing exactly where to place each dish without hesitation. James walked in slowly, his footsteps heavy as he sat down at the table. He barely glanced at the food, poking at it without interest. The air between them felt thick, like a wall neither of them knew how to tear down. "Are you going to the church today?" he asked, not looking up, his voice flat and tired. "Yes," Christina replied softly. "Father Michael asked if I could help him with the preparations for Sunday's service." James let out a low, bitter sigh. "Of course, you and that church." His words stung, but Christina didn't let it show. She had grown used to the way her father spoke about her faith, about God. Since her mother's passing, James had turned his back on everything he once believed in. To him, God had abandoned them, leaving him to suffer alone. But to Christina, God was the light that guided her through the darkest of times. "Dad," Christina began, her voice quiet but firm, "I wish you would come with me. Just once. I think it would help. Being there. Feeling the peace." James clenched his jaw, his face hardening as he pulled his hand away from the table. "I don't need your God," he snapped, his tone sharp and filled with pain. "Not after what he did to us." The silence that followed was heavy, like a thick blanket that suffocated the room. Christina sat back, her heart aching for the man her father had once been. She couldn't force him to believe again, to feel the hope she still carried. All she could do was pray that one day he would find his way back to the faith that had once filled their home. Later that afternoon, Christina made her way to the church, her cane tapping softly against the sidewalk. The route was familiar, and though she couldn't see the city around her, she felt its life. The scent of fresh bread from the bakery, the hum of traffic, the distant laughter of children playing in the park, all of it painted a picture in her mind. When she reached the church, Father Michael was waiting for her by the entrance. His warm, gentle voice greeted her. "Christina, it's always good to see you." She smiled, taking his hand for a moment in greeting. "It's good to be here, Father." The church had become a second home to Christina, especially since her mother's death. The quiet halls, the smell of candles and incense, the sound of Father Michael's voice leading prayers. It was her sanctuary, and in those sacred moments, she found peace. As they worked together to prepare for the upcoming service, Christina couldn't shake the sadness that clung to her thoughts. She straightened the pews, her fingers tracing the worn wood as she moved. Her father's words echoed in her mind, the bitterness in his voice lingering like a wound that wouldn't heal. Father Michael must have noticed the tension in her movements. "You seem troubled today," he said gently, pausing to look at her. Christina hesitated, then sighed. "It's my father. He's slipping further away from me. Every time I try to reach him, to bring him back to the man he used to be, he pulls away. I don't know what to do anymore." Father Michael placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Grief can be a powerful thing, Christina. It can blind people, make them lose sight of what truly matters. But don't lose hope. God works in ways we may not always understand. Your father's heart may be closed now, but that doesn't mean it will stay that way forever." Christina nodded, her heart heavy, but still clinging to the hope that her father would one day heal. She prayed for him every night, for the man who had once been her rock. But as time passed, it felt as though she was losing him more and more each day, and she didn't know how much longer she could hold on to her faith alone. As night fell, James sat in the living room, staring out the window at the street below. The flicker of streetlights reflected in his tired eyes, but his mind was somewhere else, trapped in a loop of memories and pain. Christina's soft voice carried through the apartment as she prayed in her room, her words a constant reminder of the faith he had lost. For now, they lived under the same roof, but in entirely different worlds. Christina's filled with light and hope, and James is consumed by the weight of his grief. And though neither of them could see it, a storm was brewing. The tension between them was growing, and the breaking point was drawing closer with each passing day. The air in the apartment felt heavy with unspoken words, the tension between Christina and her father thickening day by day. What had once been a comfortable silence now loomed like a dark cloud, filled with unexpressed feelings and unresolved pain. James had transformed into a man of few words. When he did speak, his voice was sharp and harsh, each word laced with the weight of the sorrow he couldn't shake. He spent most of his time working late, and when he was home, he avoided Christina as much as he could. The bond they once shared felt strained, as if it were a fragile thread that might snap at any moment. Despite the emotional distance between them, Christina sought strength in her faith. Each morning and night she knelt beside her bed, pouring out her heart to God. She prayed for her father, hoping that divine light would break through his heavy grief. Christina understood she couldn't change James's feelings or erase his pain, but she believed that, with time, God could help him find his way back to hope. Unfortunately, James seemed to be moving further away from that hope. The joy that had once filled their home was now overshadowed by his unyielding bitterness. His anger began to seep into every corner of their lives, like a dark stain that wouldn't wash away. He had begun to blame Christina for everything: the loss of his wife, the struggles they faced, and the heavy weight of grief that pressed down on them both. In his mind, she was a constant reminder of what he had lost. "Why do you keep going to that church?" he snapped one evening, his tone cutting through the silence like a knife. Christina paused, her fingers grazing the edge of the dinner table as she set down his plate. The question hung in the air, filled with a mix of anger and disbelief. She could sense the bitterness radiating from him, but she remained calm. "It brings me peace, Dad. It's where I feel closest to Mom and to God." James scoffed, the sound harsh and dismissive. "Peace? There's no peace in this house, Christina. Not anymore." The words pierced Christina's heart, but she didn't retaliate. Instead, she took a deep breath, reminding herself that her father was hurting. It was not the time to argue. It was a time to love him through the pain, even if that love felt unreciprocated. Still, James's anger was a storm brewing beneath the surface, ready to erupt. In his darkest moments, he began to whisper dangerous thoughts that hinted at a turmoil so deep it terrified Christina. At times, when he thought she wasn't listening, he muttered to himself, his voice trembling with frustration. "What if it had been different?" he would say, his gaze fixed on nothing in particular, lost in a world of sorrow. What if she hadn't been born like this? Would things have been better? Christina could hear his troubled whispers echoing down the hall, and they sent shivers down her spine. She didn't fully understand what he meant, but she sensed the danger hidden in his words. Something was very wrong with her father, something her prayers hadn't yet reached. Despite her own heartache, Christina continued to pray. Every night after James had gone to bed, she knelt beside her bed, hands clasped tightly together. She prayed for healing, for peace, and for the strength to continue loving her father through his growing distance. In her heart, she believed God could work miracles, that even in the darkest times, light could find its way back to them. But change was in the air. James's mutterings became more frequent, his anger edging ever closer to the surface. He began to speak more openly about his frustrations, lashing out at Christina in ways that left her shaken. "It should have been different," he growled one night as they sat at the dinner table. His voice was low, but the rage simmered just beneath. "None of this should have happened. Your mother should still be here." Christina's heart sank at his words. She felt helpless, caught in a web of pain she couldn't untangle. Each time she tried to comfort him, it seemed to make things worse, deepening the rift between them. "Dad, please. Let's not talk like this," she said softly, her voice trembling. "We can't change the past." With a sudden crash, James slammed his fist down on the table, making the dishes rattle. "No, we can't change the past, but we shouldn't have to live like this. He caught himself, his jaw tightening, as if he were trying to hold back something darker. Christina's breath caught in her throat. She felt a chill wash over her, sensing that the storm inside him was brewing to a dangerous climax. But what could she do? She was blind to his suffering, just as she was blind to the world around her. All she could do was pray and hope that God would intervene before it was too late. That night, as she lay in bed, Christina whispered her prayers into the stillness. She asked God for guidance, her heart heavy with concern for her father and the rising tide of turmoil that threatened to engulf them both. Little did she know, her prayers would soon be answered, but not in the way she expected. The night air was thick with tension as James stumbled through the front door, the heavy scent of alcohol clinging to him like a shroud. The moment he stepped inside, a tense silence filled the room, amplifying the storm brewing within him. Christina sat in the living room, her small hands tightly clasped in her lap, sensing the dark energy radiating from her father. She could feel the weight of his anger, yet she couldn't fully grasp the depth of his despair. "Dad, you're home late," she said softly, trying to break the silence and ease the tension. "Shut up," he barked, his voice sharp and filled with fury. "What do you know about anything?" Christina recoiled, fear gripping her heart. The man she once idolized was slipping away, consumed by a darkness that twisted his heart and mind. She shivered, sensing that something terrible was about to happen. As the evening dragged on, James's mood grew darker, his anger morphing into a festering resentment that threatened to boil over. Memories of his late wife, their shared laughter, their dreams, haunted him, swirling like ghosts in his mind. In his intoxicated haze, he had begun to blame Christina for her death, seeing her as a reminder of all he had lost. The atmosphere crackled with unspoken words, and the walls of their apartment felt as if they were closing in around them. In a moment fueled by grief and rage, James made a shocking decision that would change everything. "Why can't you just be normal?" he shouted, his words cutting through the silence like a knife. "You're a burden, just like your mother was." Christina's heart shattered at his words, but before she could respond, James lunged forward in a fit of rage. Time seemed to freeze as she felt herself pushed. She grasped for something, anything, to hold on to, panic surging through her. "No, Dad!" she cried, but her voice was lost in the chaos. With a forceful shove, she was propelled toward the balcony's edge, the night air rushing past her. In those terrifying moments, everything began to fade, and she felt a surreal clarity wash over her. The lights of the city blurred into streaks, and the ground loomed closer and closer. As she fell, Christina's mind swirled with a whirlwind of emotions, fear, disbelief, and a strange, haunting sense of peace. Her heart raced, yet a voice deep within her whispered for calm. "Trust," it urged. "Trust in what comes next." In that instant, her consciousness began to separate from her physical form. A warm, enveloping light surrounded her, pushing back against the terror of the moment. Time suspended. The chaos of her fall transformed into a serene ascent. The blaring sirens of reality faded into a soft hum, replaced by an ethereal glow that beckoned her. As the light enveloped her, Christina felt an overwhelming sense of release. The burdens of her earthly existence, her father's anger, her blindness, the pain of loss, dissolved in this pure brilliance. Caught between two worlds, Christina sensed herself drawn toward the light, a magnetic pull she couldn't resist. Her spirit longed for the embrace of something far greater than herself. But what awaited her in this realm of light? What mysteries lay ahead? As Christina drifted deeper into the radiant light, she suddenly found herself in an awe-inspiring landscape, filled with colors beyond her wildest imagination. Ethereal shades of blue, green, and gold surrounded her, each hue radiating a warmth that enveloped her like a comforting hug. For the first time, she could truly see, not just with her eyes, but with her spirit. The vibrant colors danced and shimmered around her, creating a breathtaking spectacle that filled her heart with wonder and joy. In this beautiful realm, an overwhelming sense of peace washed over her. All the worries and fears from her earthly life melted away, replaced by a profound feeling of love and acceptance. As she moved forward, Christina noticed a figure approaching her, illuminated by a brilliant light that seemed to pulse with divine energy. It was Jesus. His presence was both gentle and powerful. As he drew near, a radiant smile spread across his face, illuminating the space around them. "Welcome, Christina," he said, his voice warm and soothing. "I've been waiting for you." Her heart soared at the sight of him. "Jesus!" she exclaimed, feeling a wave of indescribable joy. She had always believed in him, but now, standing before him, she could feel the depth of his love wrapping around her like a warm blanket. "You have a special purpose, my child," Jesus said, his eyes sparkling with compassion. "Your time on earth isn't finished yet. There is still much work for you to do." In that moment, Jesus reached out and handed Christina a glowing letter. It radiated with a soft light, and she could feel its energy pulsing in her hands. "This letter holds hidden truths about life and the world to come," he explained. "It will guide you in your journey." As she held the letter, visions began to unfold before her. She saw people lost in their daily routines, consumed by material possessions and disconnected from their spiritual selves. Families gathered together but were emotionally miles apart, their conversations filled with distractions instead of love. Christina felt a wave of sadness wash over her as she recognized the emptiness in their eyes. "Many are yearning for something more," Jesus said, his voice filled with urgency. "They've forgotten how to reconnect with their faith and with one another. Your mission is to help them remember the love that exists within and around them." Tears of understanding filled Christina's eyes as she grasped the weight of her mission. "But how can I do that?" she asked, her voice trembling with emotion. "By sharing your story," Jesus replied, a serene smile gracing his lips. "Your strength and resilience can inspire others to find their way back to me. Show them that even in darkness there is light. Help your father heal, and through him, many will find hope." As he spoke, Christina felt a surge of courage and determination ignite within her. She realized that her journey was not just about her. It was about everyone who struggled in the shadows. She could be a beacon of hope, a guiding light in a world that often felt dark and lonely. "Remember, Christina, you are never alone. I am with you always," Jesus reassured her. "Now go and let your light shine brightly." With a final nod, Christina opened the glowing letter, ready to embrace the truths that awaited her. The warmth of heaven surrounded her, filling her heart with love and purpose as she prepared to return to Earth, armed with newfound strength and a mission that would change everything. As Christina unfolded the glowing letter, a warm light enveloped her, illuminating the sacred words inscribed within. Each word pulsed with a divine energy that sent an electric thrill through her. This was more than just a letter. It was a revelation, offering glimpses into profound truths about life and existence. "This letter will show you the future of humanity, Christina," Jesus' voice echoed softly in her mind. With each line she read, vibrant images danced before her eyes, revealing people lost in their daily routines, utterly disconnected from their true selves. Christina saw a world drenched in loneliness, where individuals, surrounded by others, felt an aching isolation. Faces filled with anxiety and despair flashed before her, painting a stark picture of a reality often hidden from view. She could feel the heavy burden of their struggles weighing down on her heart. The disconnect from their spiritual essence left them wandering in darkness, crying out for something they couldn't quite grasp. Suddenly, the scene shifted, and Christina found herself observing souls trapped in an endless cycle of torment. They floated in shadowy realms, their cries for help echoing in the emptiness. The anguish and desperation in their expressions pierced her heart, igniting a fierce compassion for these lost souls. "Salvation lies in reawakening the spirit," Jesus' voice resonated deeply within her. "People must embrace love, not just for themselves, but for one another. They need to recognize the eternal nature of their souls and the divine light that resides within them." The truth struck Christina with startling clarity. Love was the key, the thread that could weave together the fragmented pieces of humanity. She understood that each act of kindness, each moment of connection, was a step toward healing the wounds that so many carried silently. But then, a more sobering truth emerged. The letter contained a powerful warning for those who inflicted pain, especially upon the vulnerable. She glimpsed individuals who caused suffering, whether through harsh words, thoughtless actions, or neglect. Their souls were not exempt from the consequences of their choices. They too endured their own suffering, often unaware of the damage they left in their wake. "Christina," Jesus urged gently, "you are tasked with delivering this vital message. Help others understand the importance of redemption and the transformative power of love. Those who harm must realize they can choose to change, that every soul has the potential to heal." The weight of this responsibility settled heavily on Christina's heart. She felt the magnitude of the mission ahead of her, a mission requiring courage and conviction. Yet, enveloped by Jesus' love, she felt a newfound strength surging within her, empowering her to take on this challenge. "Fear not, for you are never alone," he reassured her, a glimmer of hope sparkling in his eyes. "Your journey is just beginning, and through your voice, many will find their way back to the light." As she carefully folded the letter back into her hands, a profound sense of purpose ignited within her. The revelations she had witnessed were not merely truths to keep, they were truths to share. She was ready to return to Earth, armed with the knowledge that could transform lives. Her heart brimmed with love, and she knew her mission was to help others rediscover the beauty of their souls and the power of genuine connection. In the warm glow of heaven, Christina stood in awe before Jesus, her heart racing with anticipation. The love radiating from him wrapped around her like a comforting blanket. "Christina," he began, "I want to show you a glimpse of your father's future." With a wave of his hand, the scene shifted. Suddenly, Christina found herself in a dim, shadowy room, observing her father, James. He sat alone, surrounded by remnants of happier times, but his face was etched with sorrow. The light in his eyes had dimmed, replaced by a haunting emptiness. Guilt weighed heavily on him, making him a prisoner of his own grief. Tears filled Christina's eyes as she watched. If James continued down this dark path, he would be trapped in a cycle of regret and despair forever. The thought pierced her heart, but as she turned to Jesus, a spark of hope ignited within her. "But there is hope, Christina," Jesus said, his voice gentle and soothing. "James is not beyond saving. You must bring him the message of forgiveness and healing." Christina felt a knot tighten in her stomach. Forgiveness seemed impossible. How could she forgive the man who had pushed her from their balcony, who had caused her so much pain? The memories of that horrifying moment flooded her mind, overwhelming her with anguish. Anger flared within her, threatening to extinguish the hope that Jesus had just offered. Seeing her inner turmoil, Jesus stepped closer, his expression filled with understanding. "Forgiveness is the path to healing, Christina. It is not only for James's sake, but for your own soul. Holding on to anger only binds you to the past. Letting go will set you both free." His words sank deep into her heart, stirring something profound. Christina knew he spoke the truth, but the enormity of forgiving her father loomed large. The very idea of confronting him filled her with anxiety. She pictured the moment she would return to Earth, looking into his eyes and offering him forgiveness. It was a daunting task, yet she felt an undeniable flicker of courage growing within her. "You have the power to break this cycle," Jesus urged, his eyes steady and unwavering. "Your love and forgiveness can illuminate the way for James. He needs you to remind him of the love he has lost." The weight of her mission settled heavily on Christina. She was being called to confront her own pain for the sake of her father's salvation. It felt terrifying, yet deep down, she realized that clinging to bitterness would only deepen her wounds. Taking a deep breath, Christina steeled herself. "I will do it," she whispered, her voice gaining strength. "I will bring this message of forgiveness to my father." "You are stronger than you realize, Christina," Jesus replied, his eyes filled with pride. "With each act of love and forgiveness, you will not only mend your own heart, but also the hearts of those around you. Remember, you are never alone in this journey." Emboldened by his words, Christina understood that this mission was about more than just her father. It was about reclaiming her own spirit and life. She would return to Earth with a heart filled with love, ready to forgive and heal. guiding James back into the light. As the sterile scent of antiseptic filled the air, Christina slowly opened her eyes, blinking against the harsh fluorescent lights. Confusion washed over her for a moment. Then the stark reality settled in. She was alive. Doctors bustled around her, their voices a mix of disbelief and astonishment. Against all odds, she had survived the fall from the 10th floor. "She's awake!" one nurse exclaimed, rushing to her bedside. Christina felt the cool touch of medical equipment against her skin and the dull ache radiating from her bruised body. But the warmth in her heart surged with a newfound sense of purpose. In the corner of the room, she spotted James, her father, sitting slumped in a chair, his face a mask of despair. His hands were clasped together, trembling as he absorbed the reality of his actions. The police officers nearby, keeping watch, reflected the severity of the situation, but Christina focused on her father's pain, determined to help him find the path back to the light. "Dad," she called softly, her voice barely above a whisper. He lifted his head, eyes wide with disbelief, as if he could scarcely comprehend that his daughter was alive. "Christina," he breathed, his voice breaking. "I'm so sorry." Stop," she interrupted gently, the words flowing from her like a soothing balm. "I need to tell you something. I went somewhere, and I met Jesus." James's brow furrowed in confusion and skepticism. "What do you mean?" he asked, leaning closer, desperate to grasp any semblance of hope. As the doctors checked her vitals, Christina began to recount her near-death experience. She spoke of the vibrant colors of heaven, the warmth of Jesus' embrace, and the glowing letter that held profound truths about life and love. Her voice was steady, resonating with a calmness that belied the trauma she had endured. "He told me that people suffer when they lose touch with their spirit," Christina explained, looking directly into her father's eyes, "and that those who harm others, especially the vulnerable, will face dire consequences." James's expression shifted as her words began to penetrate his emotional barriers. She could see the gears turning in his mind as he processed the gravity of what she was saying. "But how can you believe that after everything?" he questioned, struggling to reconcile her faith with the harsh reality of their situation. "Because, Dad," Christina replied, her voice unwavering. "I felt his love. He showed me that forgiveness is the way to healing. Not just for you, but for both of us." As she spoke, a flicker of realization crossed James's face. The remnants of his hardened heart began to crack, revealing the guilt and sorrow buried deep within. He fought to contain the emotional storm brewing inside him, his defenses starting to crumble under the weight of his daughter's unwavering love and conviction. "I know you're hurting," Christina continued, her heart aching for him. "But you can change. You can find your way back to the light." Tears welled in James's eyes and he struggled to form words. "But I don't deserve forgiveness, Christina, not after what I did." "That's not true," she urged gently. "Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is what we do next. Jesus believes in you and I believe in you too." Days turned into a blur for James as he sat in silence, the weight of his guilt suffocating him. Confined to his small apartment under house arrest, he felt imprisoned by his own remorse. The walls seemed to close in, mirroring the chaos inside his mind. He couldn't shake the memory of that fateful night, the moment when his rage overtook him and he nearly took his daughter's life. Every creak of the floorboards echoed his shame, and the sunlight filtering through the curtains felt like a harsh reminder of the life he had almost destroyed. He became a ghost in his own home, avoiding the few visitors he had. Friends and family who had once been close now seemed like strangers. They could not understand the depth of his despair, nor could he bear to explain. Christina, on the other hand, was determined to bridge the chasm between them. She had spent countless hours reflecting on Jesus' words during her near-death experience. Forgiveness was not just an act, it was a profound journey toward healing for both herself and her father. One evening, as the golden rays of the sunset streamed through the window, she found the courage to approach him. "Dad, can we talk?" she asked gently, stepping into the dimly lit room. James looked up, his eyes red-rimmed and weary. "What's there to say? I nearly killed you, Christina. I don't deserve your forgiveness." "I know it's hard to believe, but I want you to hear me out," she replied, her voice steady and warm. "I forgive you, not because I have to, but because it's the only way for us to heal." James's heart sank at her words. "You don't mean that. How can you, after everything?" I do mean it, Dad, Christina insisted, her resolve shining through the pain. Holding on to anger and resentment will only poison us both. Jesus taught me that forgiveness is a powerful gift we can give ourselves. It's the way to freedom. As she spoke, James felt as if a dam had burst inside him. He had spent so long trapped in a cycle of guilt and shame that the notion of being forgiven seemed impossible. The tears he had held back for so long began to spill down his cheeks. I don't know if I can ever forgive myself, he admitted, his voice cracking. It's a journey, Dad, she said softly. Forgiveness doesn't erase what happened, but it opens a door to healing. You can't change the past, but you can change what comes next. The room was thick with emotion, and James's heart began to stir with something he hadn't felt in a long time: hope. Her act of forgiveness was a lifeline thrown into the turbulent waters of his despair. Yet doubt gnawed at him. But what if I can't change? What if I keep hurting the people I love? You have to believe you can, Christina replied, her eyes shining with compassion. It starts with recognizing your pain and understanding why it happened. You can seek help, and you can start anew. I'll be here for you. The plot twist in their story was taking shape before them, yet James felt the weight of uncertainty linger. Could he truly find redemption? The path seemed daunting, and he was filled with questions about whether he was capable of change. Christina's forgiveness opened the door, but he needed to find the strength to step through it. I want to try, Christina. I really do, he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper, but I'm scared. That's okay, she reassured him, reaching out to hold his hand. We'll face this together. It's going to be a difficult road, but we can do it. In that moment, hope flickered brighter, illuminating the dark corners of their lives. James understood that while the road to redemption would be challenging, he was not alone. The struggle was real, but Christina's grace and faith were powerful enough to guide him forward, one step at a time. The morning sun bathed the small church in a warm, inviting light as James stood hesitantly outside, his heart pounding. Memories of his past mistakes flooded his mind, yet a flicker of hope pushed him forward. Father Michael, known for his kindness and compassion, stood at the entrance, waiting for him. Welcome back, James. Father Michael greeted him with a warm smile that seemed to erase the heaviness in the air. It's good to see you here. James nodded, struggling to hold back the storm of emotions. I'm not sure I belong here anymore. I've done terrible things. This is the perfect place for you, the priest reassured him gently. Here, you can begin your journey of healing and rediscovery. It's never too late to find your way back to faith. As James took a seat in the pews, he felt the weight of his guilt start to lift, if only slightly. The hymns filled the air with a sense of hope, and the warmth of the congregation wrapped around him like a comforting blanket. He listened intently as Father Michael spoke about forgiveness, love, and the power of second chances. Each word resonated deep within him, igniting a glimmer of belief that perhaps he could change after all. In the weeks that followed, James became a regular at the church. He attended group sessions and sought guidance from Father Michael. The journey was challenging. He faced his demons head-on, revisiting the pain he had caused Christina and confronting the anger that had consumed him for years. Each session was a mix of tears and revelations, but with each step, he felt a sense of catharsis. Meanwhile, Christina was on her own path of transformation. Embracing her second chance at life, she became an advocate for the vulnerable and disabled. Drawing strength from her near-death experience, she began sharing her story with others, emphasizing the importance of mental and spiritual well-being. Christina spoke passionately at schools, community centers, and online platforms, urging people to connect with their spiritual selves and to support those who might be struggling. Your life is a precious gift, she would tell her pupils, her voice filled with conviction. We must cherish it and help others do the same. No one should feel alone in their struggles. Her journey wasn't without challenges, but Christina's resilience inspired many. She received heartfelt messages from people touched by her story, those battling mental health issues, disabilities, or personal loss. Each note fueled her mission, reminding her of the profound impact of love and compassion. As James continued his journey of healing, he found himself becoming more involved in the church community. He volunteered for various outreach programs, trying to give back even a fraction of the love and support he had received. He helped organize events to assist those in need, and with each act of service, he began to feel a sense of purpose. The more he gave, the more he healed. However, the road to redemption was fraught with obstacles. Late at night, guilt would creep in, dragging him back into darkness. Moments of doubt plagued his mind, and he feared that his past would always overshadow his efforts to change. What if I'm not enough? He wondered silently, wrestling with the remnants of his shame. Father Michael noticed the struggle and sat down with him one afternoon. "James, it's normal to feel this way," he reassured him. "Redemption is a journey, not a destination. You may stumble, but what matters is that you keep moving forward." James listened intently, the priest's words echoing in his heart. "I want to believe that, Father, but I fear I'll never truly be free from my past." "Your past doesn't define you," Father Michael said firmly. "You are defined by what you choose to do now and in the future. Embrace your mistakes as lessons, not chains." With renewed determination, James began to face his fears. He spoke openly to Christina about his struggles, sharing the nights when guilt kept him awake. To his surprise, she listened without judgment. "Dad, it's okay to feel that way. Just remember you're not alone. I believe in you." As their relationship continued to mend, Christina's faith in her father became a powerful motivator for James. He wanted to prove to her and to himself that he could be better. But the question lingered: would he be able to fully break free from the chains of his past? Months had passed since Christina's miraculous return, and today she stood in front of a packed auditorium, her heart racing with excitement and nervousness. This wasn't just another speaking engagement. It was an opportunity to share the profound messages she received from Jesus during her near-death experience. Taking a deep breath, she approached the podium, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. "Thank you all for being here today." She scanned the faces before her, seeing both strangers and familiar friends. "I stand before you not just as a survivor, but as a messenger of hope." As she spoke, Christina poured her heart into every word, recounting the powerful insights she gained from her extraordinary encounter with Jesus. "I learned that forgiveness is not just an act. It is a profound journey we must embark on for ourselves as much as for others. Forgiveness opens the door to love and connection, creating bridges where there were once walls." She paused, letting her words linger in the air, allowing the weight of her message to settle over the people. "In my darkest moments, I discovered that our souls are eternal and that life continues far beyond our physical existence. We are all interconnected, bound by a love that transcends time and space." The people leaned in, captivated by her story. Christina spoke passionately about the importance of nurturing both mental and spiritual health, emphasizing their deep connection. When we neglect our spiritual well-being, we invite anxiety and despair into our lives. But when we care for our souls, we cultivate resilience and joy. As she continued, her eyes glistened with tears, reflecting the weight of her journey. Redemption is always possible, no matter how deeply we've stumbled. If we embrace love, we can heal even the most profound wounds. The atmosphere in the auditorium shifted. It became almost tangible. Christina's words resonated deeply, echoing in the hearts of those present. People nodded. Some wiped away tears, and others exchanged glances filled with understanding. It was as if a collective sigh of relief spread throughout the room. In the people, James sat, tears streaming down his face as he absorbed every word Christina spoke. Her journey mirrored his own, reminding him of the transformative power of forgiveness. As he watched his daughter share her heart, he felt overwhelmed with gratitude and pride. She had become a beacon of hope, inspiring others, and he couldn't help but feel the weight of his own path toward redemption. "Today, I urge you all to forgive, to love, and to connect with your spiritual essence," Christina concluded, her voice rising with passion. "No matter the darkness you may face, remember that light will always return. Our souls never die, and love can conquer all." The room erupted into applause, a wave of emotion washing over everyone present. As Christina stepped down from the stage, she caught James's gaze. In that moment, they shared a profound understanding, a bond forged through pain, forgiveness, and a shared journey toward healing. After the event, as the crowd began to disperse, people approached Christina to share their own stories of struggle and redemption. One woman, tears streaming down her cheeks, said, "Your story gave me hope. I lost my daughter last year, and I've been struggling to forgive myself for not being there." "I'm so sorry for your loss," Christina replied gently, her voice full of empathy. "It's never too late to forgive yourself. Healing takes time, But remember that love never fades. Another man stepped forward, his voice trembling. I've been battling addiction, and I feel so lost. Your words today made me realize that I can change. You can, Christina assured him, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. Every day is a new opportunity to make better choices. Surround yourself with those who uplift you, and don't hesitate to seek help. As more people shared their stories, James observed from a distance, feeling a mix of pride and relief. Christina had transformed her pain into a powerful message, and in doing so, she was helping others heal. It was a testament to her strength and resilience. Days turned into weeks, and Christina continued her mission. She started a support group for survivors and families affected by trauma, creating a safe space for individuals to share their experiences. Each session was filled with heartfelt stories of heartbreak and healing, and Christina facilitated discussions that emphasized the importance of compassion and understanding. James, too, began to find his footing. With Father Michael's guidance, he attended church regularly and volunteered at the local community center. He found solace in helping others, realizing that service was a way to redeem himself. He taught life skills to at-risk youth, sharing his story as a cautionary tale and encouraging them to seek healthier paths. One evening, after a particularly inspiring support group session, Christina returned home feeling invigorated. She found James sitting at the kitchen table, deep in thought. "Dad, are you okay?" she asked, sensing his turmoil. James looked up, his eyes heavy with emotion. I keep thinking about everything that happened, Christina. How did we get to this point?" "We got here through a lot of pain," she replied gently. "But we're also here because we're trying to make things right. It's never too late to choose love over fear." He nodded, contemplating her words. "You're right. I can't change the past, but I can work on being a better person from now on." As the weeks rolled on, James continued to wrestle with his guilt and shame. But Christina's unwavering support and the connections he formed in the community helped him chip away at the walls he had built around himself. He began to realize that his past didn't have to define his future. Then came the day when Christina decided to organize a public event to share her journey with the broader community. She wanted to reach those who might be suffering in silence, those who felt alone in their struggles. With her father by her side, they planned a day filled with speeches, testimonials, and resources for mental health and spiritual well-being. On the day of the event, the park was bustling with activity. Colorful banners fluttered in the breeze, and laughter filled the air. As people gathered, Christina felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. She was determined to share her message of hope and healing with as many people as possible. "Today we're here to celebrate resilience," she began, addressing the crowd. "We're here to remind ourselves that no matter what we face, we have the power to heal and to forgive." As she spoke, Christina shared her story, detailing the moments leading up to her near-death experience and the insights she gained during that time. She emphasized the importance of mental and spiritual health, the healing power of love, and the necessity of forgiveness. James watched, filled with pride as his daughter captivated the people. He could see how her words resonated deeply with those listening. The crowd was silent, hanging on to every word, and he knew they were feeling the same sense of hope he'd experienced since her miraculous return. "Let us all remember that we are not alone. Together we can support one another, heal our wounds, and rise stronger," Christina concluded, her voice rising with passion. The crowd erupted into applause, and James felt a rush of emotion. He knew that his daughter was making a difference, one heart at a time. As the event wound down, people approached James, expressing gratitude for his support and the courage it took to stand beside Christina. Each interaction chipped away at the weight he had carried for so long. He began to see the potential for growth, not just for himself, but for those around him. Weeks turned into months, and Christina's initiative blossomed. She created an outreach program to help individuals struggling with mental health and spiritual crises. It became a safe haven where people could share their stories without fear of judgment. Many came to find comfort and understanding, guided by Christina's gentle spirit. In the quiet moments, James reflected on the journey they had both undertaken. He thought of all the pain, the regrets, and the hope that had emerged from it. The guilt still lingered, but it no longer consumed him. He was learning to live with it, allowing it to fuel his desire to become a better man. Then one evening, as Christina prepared for another support group session, James approached her with a newfound determination. "Christina, I've been thinking, I want to share my story too. I want people to know that healing isn't just for those who've been hurt, but for those who've caused hurt as well." Her eyes widened with surprise and pride. Dad, that would be amazing. Your perspective is just as important. It will show others that change is possible. With her encouragement, James prepared to share his story at the next session. On the night of the meeting, he stood before the group, heart-pounding but resolute. "I want to talk about the mistakes I made and how I've learned to navigate the path of redemption," he began. "My actions caused immense pain to my daughter and our family, but I've learned that it's never too late to seek forgiveness and to change." He spoke openly about his guilt, his isolation, and the steps he had taken toward healing. The room was silent, the air thick with emotion as people listened to his vulnerable admission. After he finished, several members shared their own stories. As Christina's journey of forgiveness and healing comes to a close, we are reminded that no matter how deep our wounds, love, faith, and redemption can bring us back to the light. Her story serves as a powerful testament to the eternal nature of the soul and the transformative power of forgiveness. If this story touched your heart, remember, this message is for all of us. We all have the capacity to heal, to forgive, and to seek redemption. Thank you for watching. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications for more life-changing stories. And if this journey resonated with you, be sure to like, comment, and share with those who need to hear it. Together, we can keep spreading hope and inspiration.